A very good evening. From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. I'm Vidushni Sadish Kumar.
And I am Dishan Veerakone, and here are your headlines for tonight. State Vesak Festival at Temple Trees. Mahasangha requests the devotees to commemorate the Vesak Festival from home. 3 persons identified as COVID-19 patients yesterday have been detected as non-infected patients. 12 infected naval officers have recovered from the disease. Cabinet approval granted to pay an additional monthly allowance to 4 field officer grades. An island-wide curfew from May 11th. Balance of the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund exceeds 891 million rupees. Now in a top story for tonight, the Vesak Full Moon Poya Day is an important day in the country as well as for the entire global Buddhist community. In general, Buddhist devotees get together to commemorate the Vesak festival by engaging in Amisa and Pratipatti Puja. However, with the pandemic situation in the world, the Buddhist devotees have been confined to their residences to commemorate the national and religious ceremonies. Now, the Vesak festival commemorates the birth, the enlightenment and parinirvana of Lord Gautama Buddha. Many pandals, lanterns, other decorations, dansal and other religious programs have been organized every year. Yet this year's commemorations have been restricted due to the prevailing situation in the country. Through colorful decorations, the Buddhist community in the country showed their devotion to the Triple Gem. Last year's Vesak festival was overlooked due to the Easter Sunday attacks. However, devotees have taken measures to commemorate the Vesak festival last year as well as this year amid numerous hindrances. The mobile traders provide necessary resources and raw material for the families to make Vesak decorations. The residents in curfew-enforced areas are also preparing to observe the Vesak festival.
Binda mohandara papa, Sinda binda mohandara papa, Dellu daham padeepa, Dellu daham padeepa, Sinda binda mohandara papa, Dellu daham padeepa. Guna hati soma, Siltega guna hati soma, Siltega guna hati soma, Vindin obedam sade, Vadim.
Meanwhile, Samanera bhikkhus are also enthusiastically preparing to commemorate the Vesak festival by decorating their respective temples. Many other religious followers are also eagerly waiting to join the Vesak festival commemorations. Many youth in the country are engaged in decorating the cities while adhering to necessary health instructions. A professional cake designer, R.L. Clement, has taken steps to design a cake in the shape of a lantern.
The inauguration program of this year's State Vesak Festival was held at the Temple Trees today. This year's Vesak commemorative festival will be held under the theme is Arogya Paramalabha Santutti Paramandanan, which depicts the meaning health is the ultimate profit, happiness is the ultimate wealth. The ceremony was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. 4 commemorative stamps with the values of 10, 15, 15 and 45 rupees depicting the contribution of the Mahasangha for the emotional, physical and the spiritual well-being of the humanity were issued along with the 2 first day covers. 1 commemorative stamp was issued portraying a wall painting at Sri Jayawardhanarama Rajamahaviharaya in Olaboduwa, symbolizing the state Vesak festival. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena presented the stamps and the first day covers to Mahasangha, including Deputy Chief Prelate of the Malwatha chapter, Venerable Niyangoda Vijayasiri Thera. Subsequently, the stamps and the first day covers were presented to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Chief incumbent of the Sri Jayawardhanarama Rajamahaviharaya in Olaboduwa, Venerable Olaboduwe Dhammika Thera, received the Sannas Patra to bestow the title of Chief Judicial Prelate for Colombo and Kaltara districts in Western Province, including the honorary title of Dharmakirti Sri Vinayacharya by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The property of the Viharaya was declared as a sacred site during the ceremony. Deputy Chief Prelate of Asgiri chapter, Venerable Anamadwe Dhammadasi Thera, Deputy Chief Prelate of Ramana Nikaya, Venerable Matale Dhammakusala, and Registrar of Amarapura Nikaya, Venerable Pallekande Ratanasara Thera, were present at this occasion. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that the Buddhist community would not be distressful as devotees who follow the Ashtaloka Dhamma, also known as 8 worldly conditions. Therefore, the Prime Minister said that the noble truth would allow the people to understand COVID-19 pandemic as well as the global situation. He said that some consider this pandemic as a punishment rendered to the entire world. Consequently, he added that these entities strive to punish those who are behind the prevailing situation rather than invoking blessings for the well-being of the humanity. He said that the people should refrain from having such negative thoughts, as this is not a punishment rendered by the nature. He added that all have become victims of this pandemic without any discrimination or class differences. He added that all have become vulnerable before 8 worldly conditions, and the Buddhists have the responsibility to invoke this truth to the rest of the world. He said that all should thrust aside any extremist ideologies and should realize that entire global community are facing the same fate as human beings.
බෞද්ධ අපි ලෝකේ මුලින්ම අන්තවාදය බැහැර කළ අය. අද මේ කාලේ සියලු ආගමිකයන්ට සියලු ජාතීන්ට එකතු වෙලා තීන්දුව ගන්න සිදු වෙලා.
Now in more local stories, a total of 194 Sri Lankans who were stranded in London arrived at the Bandaranaike International Airport today. The Sri Lankan flight UL504 arrived at the BIA from the London Heathrow Airport. Airport officials said now that a group of Sri Lankans stranded in the US and Canada had arrived at London to board the Sri Lankan flight to arrive in Sri Lanka. The students and their luggage were disinfected at the airport and then were taken to quarantine centres by the Sri Lanka Army. They have checked in at Jetwing Blue, Jetwing Lagoon hotels in Negombo and the Citrus Hotel in Vaskadua for quarantine, while another group was sent to a quarantine centre operated at the Diagamma Technological Institute. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan flight UL302 left the BIA today for Singapore to bring 180 Sri Lankan students stranded in Singapore.
Here we have a specific procedure of receiving these passengers. From the time that they get out from the aircraft and through Air Force, going through a mini quarantine procedure, then the immigration procedures, then the health check, and after that specific instruction for the passengers. Finally, we are handing them to the Sri Lanka Army. So they are working on the plan of sending them to special areas earmarked and demarcated to keep them for the next 14 days.
We have done a great service. The Airport Authority and the Civil Aviation Authority, we both have got together, and the Sri Lankan Airlines and the Health Department and the Security Services. I would thank all of them for their great contribution for this humanitarian mission.
In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Navy says that 12 COVID-19 infected naval officers have completely recovered from the disease thus far. The Ministry of Health has indicated that laboratory reports have confirmed that 3 persons detected as COVID-19 patients yesterday have been identified as non-infected persons. Another 20 COVID-19 patients were detected yesterday. 15 patients have been identified as security force officers. Another patient was confirmed at the Kandakadu quarantine centre. Other patients were reported from Kolonnawa, Modara and Rajgiri areas. Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jayasinghe said that 2 confirmed cases were reported from Kolonnawa and Rajagiriya, while the others were part of the nursing staff of the Sri Lanka National Hospital. He said that the laboratory had identified them as patients with fever. Accordingly, he said that necessary measures were taken after the identifying of patients. He said that they have carried out retesting on the patients in accordance to the protocol. Consequently, the test results have revealed that they are not COVID-19 infected patients, he added. Accordingly, the Director General said that a decision was reached to remove the names of these 3 persons from the list of the total number of COVID-19 infected patients in the country. He said that a circular was issued by him over the resumption of salons, which is available in the website of the Ministry of Health. He said that according to the circular, the salon owners must obtain necessary instructions and fulfill the relevant obligations from their respective office of the medical health officer.
ඒ අවශ්‍යතා සම්පූර්ණ කිරීමෙන් පසුව එම සැලෝන් විවෘත කිරීමට ඔවුන්ට අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා එම සැලෝන් හිමිකරුවන් මේ අපගේ වෙබ් අඩවියෙන් එම තොරතුරු ලබාගෙන සෞඛ්‍ය වෛද්‍ය නිලධාරීන් කාර්යාලවලට ගොස් එම කටයුතු ඉදිරියට ඉටු කරන ලෙස ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
3 more COVID-19 patients were recorded today. The Ministry of Health confirmed that the infected patients are attached to the security forces. 1,491 PCR tests were carried out in the country yesterday. A batch of 27 persons left the Kandakadu quarantine centre today after completing their quarantine period. They were detected from the Kesalwatta Bandaranayaka Mawatha area. The Ministry of Health has directed its attention to further strengthen the measures undertaken to control and prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Action Review Committee on the Prevention of COVID-19 has suggested that steps taken to control the spread of the virus and further expand the treatment services with the easing of the enforced curfew. The meeting of the committee was held under the patronage of Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi. The meeting was held at the Health Ministry premises today. The 9th COVID-19 death in the country was reported yesterday. A portion of the housing complex where she resided in Modara has been isolated. However, residents of the housing complex have been prohibited from entering and exiting the complex premises. A group of individuals whom were unable to return to their residences in Puttalam district for more than 2 months has been able to return to their homes. They have been identified as residents of Sandiveli area in Batiklo. Vaccination for the immunization and the distribution of 3 Posha, which was temporarily suspended due to the spread of the coronavirus, has been resumed. Vaccination process was carried out in many clinics across the country today. In the meantime, the balance of the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund exceeds 891 million rupees. Now, the Ceylon Bank has made a contribution of 2.5 million rupees, while Lanka Indian Oil PLC has donated 5 million rupees to the fund. 1 million rupees worth donation has been made to the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund by KDU Gunaratna, and APBC Enagama has made a contribution worth 200,000 rupees. The relevant checks, which were handed over to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, were presented to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday. The balance of the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund has exceeded 891 million rupees, marked with personal and institutional donations, and 1.5 million rupees worth contributions made by the Past Students Association of the Peradeniya University in New South Wales to the fund. All donations will be credited to the special account opened under the number 85737373 at the corporate bank branch of the Bank of Ceylon. Local and foreign donors have made their contributions to the fund. Donations made to the fund has been exempted from taxes and foreign exchange regulations. Deposits can be made through checks or telegraphic transfers. Further details can be obtained from Director General Administration of Presidential Secretariat KB Egodavela through the telephone numbers 0112 354 479 or 0112 354 354.
Well, an island-wide curfew has been imposed from 8 p.m. today until 5 a.m. on Monday, May 11th. The curfew imposed in the districts Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Puttalam, identified as high-risk zones, will remain in force until further notice. DIG Ajit Rohana said that intelligence services were deployed to arrest those who engage illegal activities during the curfew enforced period. He said that necessary legal action will be taken against those who violate curfew laws during the Vesak festive season.
දිනේ අනිද්දා දිනේදී කිසිම තාණයක සතුන් මැරීම අවසරපත් තිබුණද මත්පැන් විකිණීම සපුරා තහනම් වෙනවා. ඔබ නිවසේ සිටීම වෙසක් සමරුණු ඇතැයි අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. එහෙත් ඔබගේ නිවස වෙසක් සැරසිල්ලකින් සරසා ගැනීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් කරනු ලබනවා නම් එය නීතියට පටහැනි කටයුත්තක් වන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් කණ්ඩායමක් හැටියට කටයුතු කරනවා නම් එය නිරෝධායන රීතීන් වලට පටහැනි. ඒ නිසා කණ්ඩායම් හැටියට එවැනි කටයුතු වල නිරත නොවන ලෙසට අපි ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
The government has taken steps on the resumption of the civilian life and state and private sector activities expected to commence from May 11th, while the curfew is in force in the high-risk zones. Both public and private sector institutions in Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutura and Puttalam districts should resume their work from Monday, May 11th. The heads of the institutions have been informed to make necessary arrangements on the functionalities of their respective institutions from curfew-lifted date. Necessary healthcare guidelines should be adhered when opening state and private sector institutions. The private sector institutions should begin work at 10 a.m., while the heads of relevant sections should decide on the number of staff expected to call for office work. The public transport has been limited for those who are reporting for work. As a measure of prevent the spread of the coronavirus, the public must always remain in their homes apart from those who engage in essential services. The public are only allowed to leave their homes to purchase essential commodities, including food and medicine. The permission to leave homes in accordance to the final digit of the national identity cards will only be implemented in the curfew-enforced areas. These provisions have been initiated with the aim to return the economy and civilian life to normalcy amid the curfew. Island-wide operations have been initiated to apprehend curfew violators at present. Accordingly, the police have arrested 394 curfew violators and 87 vehicles in the last 24 hours. A total of 47,236 individuals have been taken into custody for violating the curfew orders, and 12,239 vehicles have been taken into police custody. Meanwhile, a discussion was held on the functionalities of the industrial, exports and investment promotion fields after controlling the spread of the COVID-19 virus in the country, and the discussion was held under the patronage of Minister Prasanna Ranatunga with the participation of the representatives of the Board of Investments and the Export Development Board. And the minister instructed the officials to refrain from taking steps for the closure of any factories or removal of employees due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers have decided to provide an additional monthly allowance for the Grama Nilgiri Economic Development Officers, Agri-Research Officers and Public Health Officers who had committed in providing the 5,000 rupee monthly allowance extended by the government. Core Cabinet spokesman Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that this decision was reached during the Cabinet meeting held today. Core Cabinet spokesman Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said that the Cabinet approval was granted to provide an additional monthly allowance for the Grama Nilgiri Economic Development Officers, Agri-Research Officers and the Public Health Officers committed in providing the 5,000 rupee allowance extended by the government. He said that the allowance will be provided for officers who are not designated as Samurdhi officers. Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to establish a Centre for Earth-Observing Satellite Data Reception and Distribution linked with the Arthur C. Clarke Centre. The centre will be established in a 10-acre land in Thalagala, Homagama. The construction of the 12-storey medical faculty building complex of the Ruhunu campus is set to resume and expected to be completed within a year by the Central Engineering Bureau. The Cabinet of Ministers have reached a decision to allocate 500 million rupees from the next budget to resume the construction work of the 10-storey building complex for the Cancer Treatment Centre in Karapitia. Until then, the construction of the project will be initiated with the special contribution worth 750 million rupees gathered by the Colours of Courage organisation. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to extend the contract period related to the construction of the Helmut Kohl Maternity Hospital, the largest maternity hospital in South Asia, currently being constructed in Gaul. The Cabinet of Ministers has also granted approval to initiate the program to improve 105 kilometers with the funds obtained from the loan program of the Development Bank of China. 15 billion rupees will be allocated for the project. Minister Janaka Bandara Tennakon informed the Cabinet of Ministers on not providing official residences for former ministers, deputy ministers and MPs.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the government has the ability to revive the economy hampered due to the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The responsibility to prepare a new economic methodology will be directed to the Presidential Task Force. These remarks were made during the first meeting held this evening with the Presidential Task Force at the Presidential Task Force, and the meeting was held with the aim to revive the economy of the country while returning the daily life of the people back to normalcy from May 11th. The President said that the Presidential Task Force for the revival of the economy and eradication of poverty should prepare new targeted economic plans divided into segments in accordance to the subject fields. The President further pointed out the ability to bring tourists into the country, targeting countries which have controlled the spread of the COVID-19. Illustrating on the measures taken by Sri Lanka to prevent the spread of COVID-19 to the other nations, the President said that the country could attract tourists for indigenous and Western medical treatments. Plans should be made to bring down high-spend tourists by issuing visa along with international recognized health certificate.
Now, several new innovations aimed to be safeguarded from the coronavirus were introduced today. It was organized by the Sri Lanka New Inventors Commission. Now, the exhibition was held at the premises of the Hunupitiya Gangarama Vihara. The chief guest of the event was Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The innovators had broadly focused on safeguarding the healthcare staff, including the physicians, from the coronavirus. 25 new innovations were showcased at the exhibition. The Commission has indicated that when importing these products, they would cost 10 times the rate of the production cost. Exporting certain new innovations would also allow the country to earn a considerable amount of foreign exchange as well. Ministers Dr. Bandula Gunawardena and Pavitra Wanyarachi were present at this occasion.
Tomorrow marks the Vesak Full Moon Poya Day. This year's Vesak festival will be commemorated in the country amid the coronavirus pandemic situation. Therefore, all should commemorate this year's Vesak festival by adhering to relevant health instructions. Chanting of Jwara Pirit was conducted in all temples across the country, centering Pravachanodaya Pirivena in Molligoda from 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had requested the Mahasangha during the recently held special Sangha Sabha meeting to chant the Jwara Pirit, invoking blessings on the citizens who have been affected from COVID-19 pandemic. Accordingly, this program was initiated considering the special request made by the President and the Prime Minister. In parallel to the State Vesak Festival, National Television's Saddharma Varsha Vesak Poya Day live program will be held at the Sri Jayavardenarama Rajamaha Vihara in Olaboduwa, Horana. Many religious programs will be held throughout the day. Ministry of Buddha Sasana has requested Buddhist devotees to take part in the live program from their respective residencies. Briefing on how to act responsibly during the Vesak festive season, Police Media spokesman S.P. Jalia Senaratna requested the public to limit their Vesak commemorations to their residencies, as an island-wide curfew will be enforced from 8 p.m. tonight until 5 a.m. on Monday, May 11th. He further requested the public to always adhere to the health instructions and avoid organizing themselves and erecting pandals. He also requested the public to be responsible and ensure a coronavirus-free Vesak festive period.
And that's a wrap of tonight's Primetime News. Until we meet again next time, do take care, stay safe and good night.
Good night.